You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
I've been an entrepreneur all my life. PricePally happens to be my fourth startup. I've done stuff in education, but right now I'm just focused on PricePally, and that's what I enjoy doing best, creating business and enjoying the process. We've taken subsidy out of oil and all of that. There has to be something as groundbreaking as subsidizing farmers to a large extent and to a very high number of them. Authenticity is the key thing for us. You are not eating okra from India. You're eating from the farmer in Oyo town or in Kano. I mean, Nigeria is blessed when it comes to agriculture.
Stay tuned as we bring you inspiring people who are unlocking Africa's economic potential. You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast with your host, Tessa Adamu.
Welcome to the Unlocking Africa podcast, where we find inspirational people who are doing inspirational things to unlock Africa's economic potential. Today, we have Luther Lawoyin, who is founder and CEO of PricePally, which is an innovative e-commerce platform that is changing the way consumers purchase food, offering both bulk and portioned options directly from farmers and wholesalers. Welcome to the podcast, Luther. How are you?
I'm very well, Tessa. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Pleasure to have you on the podcast and looking forward to the conversation. As always, I like to start from the beginning, so I was hoping you can give us a brief introduction into who Luther Lawoyin is.
All right, thank you. So Luther Lawoyin is CEO of co-founder of PricePally. Luther has always been an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. PricePally happens to be my fourth startup. I've done stuff in education, which was called passjam.com.ng, which was a test prep site for students preparing for a very popular exam in Nigeria called JAMB. I did that and exited it. Went on to do something called lucy.ng, which is e-commerce for branded merchandise and gift items. From there, I came to do PricePally. But before all of that, there was something called Potato Lagos, which came before PassJam then. But right now, I'm just focused on PricePally, and that's what I enjoy doing best, creating business and enjoying the process and growing from there. I'm married with 3 beautiful daughters. My hobbies are I just chill when I have the time to. And yeah, that's me in summary.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that you've always been an entrepreneur, but was there a specific experience or something in the market that you saw in terms of a market gap that inspired you to create PricePally?
First, it was a personal experience. I got married in 2018, and that was my first time not my first time. I've always visited the market with my mom back then, but I think I was shielded from most things. But when I got married, my wife, I used to follow my wife everywhere, and we used to go to market together, and it was just a horrific experience, in local markets because of very unstructured and open-air markets where you see a lot of things. So that was very horrific for me, and it wasn't something that helped us because we would usually have a fight or, I'm tired and things like that. So I was desperately looking for an alternative for that. We saw a few things online, but wasn't it then. Some of our experiences, I traveled to China at the time for an Alibaba conference program rather, and I came in contact with Pinduoduo, and it was just mind-blowing on the solutions they had. Then other events here and there just mapped out together to think of PricePally to be able to bring efficiencies. That market was riddled with inefficiencies, and it's also a very structural problem that needs to be fixed because that's like your basic need, So all of that came together to map out what we call PricePally today. But at different times, different things happened, and the idea came up one way or the other.
As you mentioned, a personal experience led you to launch PricePally in 2019. So since then, how has the vision or mission of PricePally evolved?
So that's a very good question. It remains the same in terms of the goal and what needs to be achieved, like the vision we see. But building that out and looking for what works as some way also changed a lot of things. So we set out to make food affordable, safe, and do that profitably, right? But through the years, we've had to like adjust as Nigeria shows up, So because of some limiting challenges, which will take time to fix, which will take resources, and which we are focused on, the process by which all of those things are coming together. For example, last year was a very rocky time for Nigeria in terms of inflation, and that really hit what we had thought the year would be like. And when you have that, in Nigeria, the food system is the most affected in so many ways. And all of that are problems that eventually, when we're able to fix, we have structures that put us in a better position when you have shocks like that. So things like being able to make structured markets for the farmers who are producing. If you started up, kind of PricePally business today, and you don't deepen sourcing, you probably be out with every other incident in Nigeria, or something that happens in the market because of how fragile, that structure is. So in terms of trying to achieve our vision, building out that structure has been different learnings, has been different pivots, it's all of that is why I wouldn't say the vision has changed, but so many things have happened that we've had to, for instance, can we do this can we sell affordably and grow as fast, make as much money as possible in terms of the business itself? So all of those questions, we've had to look at different types of funding that we need, to be able to achieve this vision. It's not the typical technology play in that sense, because there are structural gaps that you can't spend equity on. There are things that are missing that is not meant for you to do, in fact, but probably with grants, with structured financing, you can achieve it, which would enable us, eventually solve the problem. So that's how things have evolved, but it's also very hard to express it in terms of the daily experiences, the pivots, the structural adjustments we have to do. But man, I've enjoyed it. It's also been very, very challenging.
You touched on some of the economic challenges or obstacles you've faced recently. So if we look at some of the challenges that maybe the farmers that you work with face, what structural challenges would you say farmers are experiencing today?
In Nigerian context, it's more like a rhetoric question, because the same problems faced documented 20, 25 years ago are still very existent. They probably have gotten more challenging because of events like COVID and things that really, really shook the system, even globally. But in terms of what we are looking at PricePally, among all of those problems, right, there are multiple layers of different problems. Like even the infrastructure of getting your food to market is something that's always been. So for us, among this myriad of problems, we see that the solution, which would unlock other solutions, is first to get that supply and demand play solid, if I can use that word, in the sense that directly connecting the producer to the consumer, so that you take out different unnecessary layers that riddle the system currently, and you are able to optimize from there in terms of being able to continuously increase supply, which means demand also has to, keep increasing. How do you keep prices at the best possible price that would even affect the larger market, which is riddled with things like personal people? I mean, for the food system that serves us today, there are, how do I put this? There are gatekeepers who, they are free to do whatever they want to do, increase price or whatnot, or do whatever they want to do. They are, because, it's many of those systems have been capitalized somehow, which you don't exactly blame, because these people built this infrastructure, which is supposed to be like a government, structured thing. Although in terms of, how things are going, I've seen an increased activity of the government trying to now create alternatives that would even challenge these local markets. But in terms of the local, what I'm explaining in terms of those people who are in the system and can take advantage of it, is that because they built it, the way they run it, you really can't blame them. And they are in business and they want to continue being in business. But we need to get to a system where that is challenged because, the demand and supply meets a lot more efficiently than it currently does. So we believe that if we're able to get to the bottom of that and, from what PricePally is doing, even other channels, other markets would open up and be able to, because that's the best way to go about it. If we're able to free the farmer economically, you will definitely see an increased growth in their supply and in, the way they can get things done. And the major key is that they're able to sell, their produce. They're able to confidently farm, against produce that is even predetermined, even guaranteed for them. So that's what we think would unlock other things, because when it's economically viable, funds will be able to, banks will be more confident to directly fund these farmers, investors, people will bring in money to that system. And from there, things can grow. The government will see that this is important. They, do roads that fix would enable that. So it's quite a big problem and a big solution to be achieved. But like I always say, I enjoy it. And yeah, I hope I've not really gone off the question.
No. Brilliant. So I guess to enable what you've just mentioned to benefit farmers, this can probably be enabled or supported through policy shifts. What kind of support do you believe would most benefit local farmers, specifically in Nigeria?
We've taken subsidy out of oil and all of that. There has to be something as groundbreaking as subsidizing farmers to a large extent and to a very high number of them. I know there have been government trials in the past of things like this, but if we could have one that actually gets to the farmer, in terms of what they need, what they're supposed to, the actual farmers and things like that. And, a lot that was committed to oil, it was committed to that sector, for a period of, say, 5 years or something, and you are able to execute it as it should be. Those, it needs to be as big as that. That's what I'm trying to say in terms of what we need to do in terms of policies. But I also do understand that it's almost not more about policies. The policies that are there today are great. There's some great policies around agriculture, around, even things they've tried in the past, programs they tried in the past that that worked in other countries, that if we had executed it, I think the main problem is executing all of these policies and making, it come to the real farm or the real farmer and all of that. I don't think we even have a problem around policies. It's executing those policies as efficiently as possible. Or everyone I come across makes sense. It's many times they've worked in other countries or they've worked in, even Nigeria in the past, but the process was hijacked or something. So if we are able to efficiently use the policies that we even have today, we are good, so that's how best I can answer that question, to be honest.
I guess another way of stimulating the agriculture sector is through investment and partnerships. I know you've called for more investment and partnerships in agriculture in the past. From your perspective, what kind of partners would benefit the work that you're doing?
Over the years, we've had diverse kind of partnerships. So we are open to partnerships that directly impact what we are doing in terms of literally building a new digital infrastructure for food distribution. So we've had partnerships with development agencies. We have direct investors. We have those who are interested in seeing more youth participation and things like that. We have partnerships with AI companies, given that we are exploring the possibilities of that. Universities as well. So there's a research that we are hoping to be able to work together with a university in the US around being able to understand the complex data that we receive from what we do currently, and how that could help unlock different things in the sector. So because, what we're dealing with is food, the possible partnerships are very diverse, and we welcome them as much as possible, especially where we don't have expertise or where funding those kind of things are way beyond what we can do. But for the good of what we need to do in terms of food, When we meet partners who are genuine and want to make a difference, we are very always open to it. So it cuts across financial space, cuts across even the NGOs, DFIs, things like that. And whatever context works, we are open to carry on conversations and partnerships.
I guess partnerships are key.
Yes.
Or a integral part of the work that you do in terms of coordinating complex supply chains and value chains that ultimately enable you to buy your products. Can you break down how your group buying model works?
Yeah. So at the start of PricePally, we knew that we need to be able to unlock advantages for the consumer by being able to mop up as much of similar demand as possible, so we could use that to negotiate from our suppliers then. And that was the premise by which we built our tech and structured our operations. But over time, as we grew, we also evolved in terms of how we even use this group buying model. So it's more integral now than a customer experience. It's more of what we do on the back end because we work directly with farmers and we are able to predict our demand. We use those demands as sort of guarantees to the farmers that they can farm ahead for us across different regions in Nigeria. So we have farmers farming tomatoes that we're going to use in the next 2-3 months as at today. So that group buying thing is more on the supply side in terms of activities. Cluster farmers are groups of farmers who farm against our demand and they're able to get the benefit of being paid good value for their work and also being paid immediately. They drop immediately their products are certified by us to go. So the group model is very essential in what we are trying to do. We also, think of bringing back the experience for the consumer in the near future, but it's structured that we've built in to be able to mop up as much demand and map it to the best possible suppliers possible.
You're listening to Verto Corner, where global payments meets smart business. Today, we're talking automation, how smarter systems can save you time and money. Here's Rodrigo Cruz, product lead at Verto, on the power of payment automation. Over to you, Rodrigo.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Rodrigo. I work at Verto. And we support customers in many different countries, in many different use cases to automate the payments workflows and fax workflows. There are huge strategic implications of automating the effects and payments. And it's something that we at Verto, we really passionate about. Obviously, beyond just the obvious efficiency gain and cost savings, there are some strategic areas where automating provides a significant competitive edge to customers. So, for example, we have many customers that use our API that allows them to do FX conversions and FX deal with us, or even payments via the API. They can embed that into their own products, or they can use that to automate that treasury management internally, for example. And that's obvious and can cost them considerably amount of costs and can save them a lot of time and a lot of money to whether it's on the internal workflows or offering effects and payments to their customers as well.
Thank you for that, Rodrigo. Just one question before you go. Beyond the obvious benefits of saving time, what are some of the less apparent but equally impactful ways that automating bill payments can contribute directly to a business's bottom line?
First, let's talk about global market access and expansion. So for any business looking to grow beyond its domestic market, dealing with cross-border payments can be a massive and very complicated hurdle. So if you think about it, user manually managing payments in different currencies, understanding local payment nuances, and navigating all these complex regulatory landscapes in each country, that can be a huge drain in time and resources in general that prevents companies to expand or makes it very, very expensive. So by automating all of this process with Verto, business can basically pay suppliers overseas, they can pay freelancers, they can pay employees, or even manage internal payment workflow within the group or within their entities in their local currencies. So beyond obviously the time that it saves, it drastically lowers the operational barriers to enter these new markets if they want to launch a new market operationally. And all of a sudden, a company can consider sourcing from a wider global pool of suppliers, paying remote talent worldwide, or even expanding sales to new regions that wasn't possible, was very difficult before. We are super excited about our new multi-currency bill payment feature that obviously saves times to user paying bills in multiple currencies, which is an obvious win, but also has a deeper impact on a business bottom line and any financial health, which is where the true magic happened. So first, there's an enhanced cash flow forecasting and management improvement to business with our bill pay product. When you're manually processing bills, especially across different currencies, there's a lot of guesswork and delayed information. So with our bill pay, companies can pay the vendors in multiple different currencies using their virtual account. So they can pay vendors in Nigerian naira and Kenyan shillings using their USD account, which saves them time. It doesn't require that FX conversions to happen before the actual vendor payment happens. And also they can simply drag and drop an invoice and our software automatically parses that invoice and creates the bill pay for them, so they don't need to manually input the payments themselves.
Thanks to Rodrigo Cruz for those practical insights on automation. Catch you next time on Verto Corner. And now back to our interview. As you mentioned, you work directly with farmers, so a lot of your work is offline, but your online tech and platform is key.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the most innovative features or tools that set PricePally apart from traditional grocery platforms?
Okay, so that continues to change. At the time we started, the group buying thing was the eats, that we saw people really jumping at. But over time, we saw that individuals would also want to create their things privately and things like that. Another thing was, so right now you are able to, we found at some point in terms of deliveries, consumer interest, consumers are open to getting theirs separately faster, instead of waiting for a batch delivery. So we enable them to be able to book their Ubers whenever their orders are ready to deliver to them. And even though it's the end of the experience when you're checking out, we've seen that people telling other people that they could do that has brought a lot of more interest in terms of, how people use the product. We do have some features that we are looking to push out very soon, which I think will be the next big one after the series we've had in the past. But we keep evolving and trying to match the best experience for the customer. Another good one that was really used by our consumers, even at the early stages when we just introduced it, was you could, when you're on PricePally, you could decide to grate your vegetables or cut your tomato. We don't cut tomatoes, but you could. There are extra services that you could get on PricePally after you buy, which helps consumers cut off time when they are preparing their food. That was also a hit, continues to be used a lot. Then we did have this promo thing that's currently running that you could, after your 3 buys, we give you fresh tomatoes and some other vegetables for free or whichever one you want. So that continues to change from time to time, and we are just always looking forward to the next big one.
Thank you for sharing that. I guess data as well is integral to the work that you do, the innovation, ensuring that your processes are streamlined. So I was wondering, what role has data or data analytics played in streamlining and reducing the costs in your operations?
More than reducing costs in the operations, data helped us see patterns in the chaos. So where we operate is really chaotic. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, the Nigerian market. And so it's the very early days of the market in terms of transforming it. Every data we could gather from product prices up until seasonality of the product, and prices over time. So we currently have something called the stew index, where we measure yearly products that make stews change over time and things like that. So in terms of what PricePally is built on, we're built on three pillars, which is technology, data, and partnerships. So it's really, really integral. We've also been able to use data to cut down expenses in terms of when data shows us something is, increasingly more expensive than we can afford, we were able to cut down on things like that. So, for instance, well, that's not a practical data thing, but I've had to move our emails from a very well-known product to a local product because it was just incredibly too expensive. But anyways, data, a better example is what we do with the farmers again. So being able to predict our supply almost to 100%. I mean, our demand is helping us make it easy for farmers to meet with our timing, meet with our product preference, even meet with the seasonality changes, because we have farmers in the middle belt of Nigeria that, when tomatoes off season in Nigeria, for instance, that's when that supply kicks off. So all of those things come to play, and data is the underlying powering part of it. So it's really, really important in what we are doing. It's the only light we have. We had it, starting out in this market.
Data helped you make sense of the chaos, so I'm assuming data has also enabled you to see potential areas for growth in new markets. So what drove the decision to test food exports to the US and also the UK?
One of the key ones for us was the consumers themselves. We had customers who had traveled out that used to shop with us in Nigeria before, and we saw that they continued ordering and telling us to ship to their friends and family or a shipper who would eventually bring it to them. So that was first like a green light that, okay, we could probably enable this. But coupled with also the influence of Nigerian music, Nigerian food, we're starting to see that as a global trend. We also do know that Nigerians are served, in those international markets, you have your Nigerian food stalls and stuff like that, but they're pretty expensive. With the advantage that we have that we can source directly and even plant against demand, puts us in a good position to be able to bring those kind of food more affordably to those markets, and eventually see what's possible in terms of being able to serve even the larger market there. So it's pretty early days for us. There's still a lot we're learning in terms of that, but those are the kind of things that made us see that opportunity. And, last year as well was really chaotic in Nigeria in terms of the dollar against Naira. So economically, to strengthen the business, it also makes sense. So those are the things that formed us. And that's, first is, the customer being able to still feel home, still able to get their food as they want it. That's the primary drive, but other points I've mentioned supports it.
Thank you for sharing that. As you mentioned, it's still early days in terms of your expansion into the UK and US.
Yeah.
But I was wondering in terms of how are you positioning PricePally to serve the African diaspora?
Basically, we want to position as the channel to home when it comes to food people love. So authenticity is like the key thing for us. You are not eating okra from India called Nigerian okra. You're eating from the farmer in Oyo town or in Kano. You are eating good produce because Nigeria is blessed when it comes to agriculture in terms of food and the nutrients of those food, and many of them are still naturally occurring with good benefits to the body. So we want to be able to connect you to that. We don't want you to, because of distance, not be able to eat what you want to eat or what you like to eat, and affordably as well. Very similar to the objectives we have at home. We just see you are a Nigerian like us abroad, and we want you to be closer to home with your food. So we also want to make that as seamless as possible. Want to make it as affordable as possible. So that's like our mission to the Nigerian diaspora families and things like that. So eventually we also want to serve businesses, but taking it one step at a time.
Indeed. So we touched on UK and US. Are there plans to expand to other African markets outside of Nigeria?
Yeah, we do have, a shipping partnership now that enables us to do that. We are exploring. So with the African Trade Union thing, the shipping partner enables us to be able to ship to multi-African countries. So we're very open to that, but it's a work in progress. As soon as we can unlock that, why not? We would be able to exchange, even probably also import some other African countries food into Nigeria at some point. But yes, that's something that we hope we can do. It's just not as easily as to be able to do that like we can with exports currently to other markets outside of Africa.
Thank you for sharing that. I guess we know that expansion of business requires additional capital. So I was wondering, how do you balance the affordability for consumers with also ensuring there's profitability for the farmers and the business?
Yeah, so simple answer is we take out as many inefficiencies as possible. Directly being able to source and ship and bring it to your table offers a lot of economic advantage compared to the traditional model or the traditional market. Then being able to free that on volumes that we can mop up also enables us to do that as much as possible. So yeah, those are the really key things, although they are the hardest things to do in the business as well. So that's like what our model affords us.
Thank you for sharing. Now, you touched on taking out inefficiencies, but I know one of the efficiencies that you do have is the cold chain, the logistical facility. So, one of the challenges we do know when it comes to logistics or agriculture in Nigeria or Africa wide is the post-harvest loss, usually due to logistical challenges and cold chain. So I was wondering, how do you manage those challenges such as cold chain, especially in high temperature regions?
Yeah, so we solve for our local context, right? First is that we're able to plan ahead. And I mean, in that sense, then when the harvest is near, the farmer would indicate to us. We also have ways by which we track that through their licensing officers. And before the harvest happens, the operation is pre-planned. So for example, in terms of high temperature that you mentioned, we do ship at night, supplies to the fulfillment center for vegetables. The harvest is done in the evening. It's shipped to us. It gets to us anytime before 12 midnight or whatnot. And the operations continues from there to deliver it to the customer. So we also do have cold chain facilities at the fulfillment centers, but there are other options, local options of charcoal as well that we're able to use. In terms of last mile delivery, there are ice gels and some packaging materials that follows items that need to be packaged like that. So we just solve for what the problem is and look for the best solutions. And that's, it's kicked into our process. It's documented and everybody follows suit. So yeah, we take advantage of technology where possible. We take advantage of the local solutions where possible.
From our conversation today, I guess one key theme that we've discussed in terms of consumer demand, consumer preference. Are there any current trends that you're seeing in how consumers, specifically in Nigeria, are changing the way that they purchase food that you're quite excited about?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure. For our experience being online, we've seen an increase in number of people who shop online, but the traditional culture remains. So we still see that people, want to go to market or have some cultural context to visiting markets or seeing other people or being able to see or feel the food they are eating and all that. That still is there. So we're also looking at being able to have hub and spoke models across the cities instead of the single, facilities we have that serves as many people as possible. So all of those things are the way we also like following the consumer patterns. And in terms of other trends, I know that we've started to, from what data is showing us, we started to see people pay more for different types of other products that are not in our local markets. So they are, for example, you can buy beef in the local market, but you can't buy a certain type of cut. And we see, users buying more of, those kind of cuts. I mean, not more users, but we've seen quite a number of people interested in only those kind of proteins, things like that. So that's the little I could speak to. But yeah, we follow suits where as it makes sense. We keep our eyes open for what's happening.
Looking to the future, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Africa in consumer food purchasing over the next, say, 5 years' time?
For some of the activities going on now in that space, I see that we would definitely start seeing better markets, better local markets with more structure, with more. So I'm using the context from Lagos, starting with Lagos, because we've seen the activities, the government there and all of that. They are unlocking something really powerful. I just pray that it's seen through when it comes to commercial activity. They are following a model that I think will change a lot of things. So with that, if Lagos State is able to push that through, you will also see more influx of even private companies looking into that space, because the opportunity in the agri space in Nigeria is totally locked right now. And as things start to evolve and opportunities are unlocked through infrastructure, it's totally different from what we see today. And I'm really, really excited about that. The opportunity to be able to make that market even more attractive to youth than, say, the music space in Nigeria today would be something, would be monumental given what is happening currently today. But I know it's possible. If we're able to unlock those plans and activities that I see as of today, we would see more activity that would come to a point where a farmer is a millionaire or is a billionaire. Like a local farmer is a millionaire and a billionaire because of that direct access to the market and more efficient distribution, a lot more ease to be able to access food. That will be in Lagos. That will be a very big deal, and I hope that comes through in the next possible 5 years and all that.
If we look closer to home, what is the future for PricePally? Where do you see the company in the next 5 years' time?
Yeah, so as much as many things I've said regarding, the future should look like, PricePally will definitely be a strong player there. We're seeing the fact that the company will be more institutionalized than remember thinking when we're starting this. We would have to integrate even with governments. We would have to integrate with key players that are active in the space, because again, no one can do this alone. We are at the distribution end of things. That's what we really want to liberate. So every other thing that happens before then, we have to really key in. So in the next 5 years, I see PricePally more established in the system. I see us having direct impact on families, then also direct impact on the farmers. I see us impacting a lot of youth. We need a lot of change when it comes to how this market is perceived, how the industry is seen out there, and what the future would look like, and we would be first in our main position, which is the market end of things, but in terms of the structural end of things as well, even in policy and all of that, I see PricePally being able to affect policy over, by the next 5 years in terms of how integrated we'll be in the food system.
Quote of the week.
As people, we often have quotes, mantras, African proverbs, or affirmations that keep us going when times are challenging or when times are good. Do you have one that you can share with us today?
There's one that I've had since I was a teenager. A friend of mine wrote it on the board in a class back then, and it's what I think I've lived by for ever since. I don't know who said it. I don't even know who to be quoted, but it's live the life you love and love the life you live. So, that has really shaped my direction in life. Because I wanted to live the life I love, I needed to take a lot of risk. I needed to not go the direction everybody expected me to. Part of why I never really took a job so that's the mantra I live by. That's probably something I might, want edged on my tombstone when I'm finally out of here, because it's the challenge to become who you want to be, recognizing all what God has put in you, and trying to live up to that potential. But you also have to love the life, because you have to guide it, you have to guard it, you have to, nurture it, you have to sacrifice for it. So probably my best quote ever.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Luther. It's been a real pleasure learning about PricePally's journey and also your vision for a smarter, more equitable food system. Wishing you and the team continued success as you continue to scale and innovate. So yeah, absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who has listened and stayed tuned to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, or tell a friend about it. You can also rate, review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you, and see you next week for the Unlocking Africa podcast.